Our guest tonight, Chris Chiemlenski. He's the Deputy Director of Numbers USA, one of the leading, one of the leading pro-American enforcer immigration laws organizations in the country. And he was on our radio show, recorded today, so he'll be on our radio show at 4 p.m. this Saturday, AM 590, The Answer, so you can tune into that as well. And we tried the Skype just before we came on. Cross your fingers, and let's hope it works again.
Hello?
Chris!
Yes.
Okay, you are live. I'm going to turn my computer around so hopefully you can see a view of the audience. And this is Chris Chiemlenski, Deputy Director of Numbers USA, and he's going to explain to us what's going on in Washington and what the Republicans are trying to do to themselves and us with amnesty. So I'm going to turn my computer around and you take it up. You take it, Chris.
Sure. Thank you. So, as many of you are probably aware, the Republican leaders held a meeting today with the entire Republican conference, and the purpose of the meeting, again, as most of you are probably aware, about 20 to 25 pro-amnesty Republicans have started a discharge petition to try to force votes on some really bad amnesty bills on the House floor. Discharge petition needs 218 signatures. Right now it sits at 215, so it only needs 3 more signatures. We know that there's one Democratic holdout. All Democrats have signed it except for one, that's Henry Cuellar from Texas. But I think he'll end up signing it if 2 more Republicans end up signing the petition, and it looks like there are 2 Republicans that will sign the petition on June 12th if there's no movement on any immigration legislation in the House between now and then. So the purpose of the meeting was for House leaders to try to present a plan, some sort of a compromise bill that they want to put together that will both appease these 24 pro-amnesty Republicans and really the House Freedom Caucus. The House Freedom Caucus is, they always seem to be the focus of attention, but they really gained some attention on the immigration issue because a few weeks ago they blew up the Farm Bill, which was a bill that House leadership really wanted to have passed. But they blew up the bill, made sure that it failed, and their reason for defeating the bill was because Paul Ryan promised to have a vote on the immigration bill introduced by Representative Bob Goodlatte of Virginia. That's a bill that Numbers USA has endorsed because of all the good things that it does do. So they wanted to have a vote on Goodlatte. Paul Ryan promised to have a vote, but he's yet to hold the vote. So they said, okay, well, we're gonna kill your heavily coveted farm bill then because you haven't given us that floor vote. So they came to terms on they were going to bring both the Goodlatte bill and the Farm Bill to the floor during the 3rd week of June, but now you have this discharge petition that's also floating out there. So about a week and a half ago, Paul Ryan got leadership, the House Freedom Caucus. He got these 24 pro-amnesty Republicans, and he got a small group of Republicans from what's called the Main Street Republican Caucus, which is a group that pretty much does the bidding of the United States Chamber of Commerce and some of the big business groups across the country. Got all of them into a room and said, okay, here are President Trump's 4 pillars. Number 1, end chain migration. Number 2, end the visa lottery. Number 3, secure the border. Number 4, offer a small amnesty to DACA eligible illegal aliens, which would amount to somewhere between 1.4 or 1.8 million illegal aliens, depending on whose estimates you're using. So we said those are the 4 pillars we're going to negotiate on. So these groups have been together, they've been working around the clock negotiating in terms of the deal. The plan was for Ryan to hold this meeting this morning with the entire Republican conference and propose or present what would ultimately be the compromise bill that all factions agreed on. Well, those factions haven't agreed on anything yet. So Paul Ryan said and gave a PowerPoint presentation, again, showing 4 different pillars and showing here's where there's agreement, here's where there's not agreement, and was hoping that maybe they could get some sort of consensus during this meeting. That didn't happen. So they're going to continue to negotiate, but as I said earlier, it sounds like the discharge petition will get 218 votes on June 12th, which is next Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday. And if that happens, what it's going to do is it's going to force a vote on, again, 3 bad amnesty bills plus the GLAD bill. That process will begin last week of June. Will probably be in July. And it looks like at this point, they probably won't get a compromise, and the discharge will actually get 218 signatures, and that's the path to go down. So that's pretty much what we see, and that's a very, very quick overview of where we stand right now.
What should people here be doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, you're a little muffled, but I can hear you okay.
What should people here be doing?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to contact their members of Congress. You know, we've put a lot of focus on House leadership over the last week and a half. If hopefully there are a couple of Numbers USA activists out there, but if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a nationwide grassroots organization with about 9 million activists across the country, both through email and our online presence. So we've been running ads and also using email to try to drive our members to make phone calls. And we're having them target a few different people. Number one, House leadership, which would include Kevin McCarthy from California, Steve Scalise from Louisiana, and then of course, Paul Ryan up in Wisconsin. So we've been having folks call their leadership offices, and then we've identified some of the key negotiators that have been part of these discussions for the last week, and having people within their districts put pressure on those folks. So I think really the best thing you can do, depending on what district you live in, again, now some of this discharge petition is being driven by some members out in California. There's Jeff Denham, David Valadeo, and Steve Knight are all pretty heavily involved in the discharge petition. All 3 of them have signed it. All 3 of them are big amnesty supporters. So any pressure you can put on those 3, as well as Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and your own members of Congress.
If anyone has a question, feel free to come on up here and ask your question. Do you have any sense, I mean, what are they thinking? Do they think this is going to help them electorally, and their supporters are just going to forgive the amnesty? Are they chasing donor dollars? Do they just, I mean, do you have any sense of what these guys are thinking?
Yeah. You know, a couple of things on that. You mentioned chasing donor dollars. What we've learned over the last couple of days, well, what we learned today is that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is you know, basing some campaign contributions on whether or not members support a DACA amnesty. We know that the Koch brothers have invested millions of dollars into members of Congress to try to urge them to push a DACA amnesty. And then again, over the last couple of days, we've learned that there have been some businessmen, especially here on the East Coast, both in North Carolina and also in Florida, who are actually getting candidates to sign a pledge that in order to get a campaign contribution from them, that they will support a DACA amnesty. So some of it is dollars. It is business group driven. Again, the Koch brothers, as well as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, is really pushing for this to happen. The Western Growers Association, which represents a lot of the farmers in the Central Valley of California, very heavily involved and wants a DACA amnesty as well. So donor dollars are at play. But these 24, 25 Republicans that have either signed the discharge petition or will in all likelihood sign the discharge petition, a lot of them are in toss-up districts. You know, I bring up Jeff Denham, really championing this effort. That's a swing district in California, and he thinks that pushing for DACA amnesty will help him Plus, again, he represents the Central Valley. I believe he owns a walnut farm. So, you know, amnesty and having an illegal workplace are things that are somewhat dear to his heart. So he's pushing this not just from a political standpoint, from a personal standpoint. And it's a midterm election year, and you heard that a lot of people fear that Republicans might get hammered at the polls. So it's really every man for himself. When they get into an election year, especially when you're 6 months out from an election, they start thinking about their own self-interest. They worry less about the party, and they worry more about own personal re-elections. And they do what it takes to get themselves re-elected. But that's also what the House Freedom Caucus is doing. The House Freedom Caucus knows if the House passes an amnesty bill, they're in big trouble when November rolls around.
Now, the amnesty proponents would have us believe that all of the, quote, DACA kids, unquote, they were all brought here when they were 2 years old. They don't speak Spanish or their original language. They're all valedictorians, and they're all pre-med at Harvard or similar place. What's the real stats or information on the DACA illegal immigrants?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no government data on who's actually received the DACA amnesty. So we have to really rely on some unofficial polling that has done by some research groups. But essentially, the portrait of DACA recipients that they've provided is that they're essentially a little bit less educated than the average American, and they tend to hold lower skilled jobs. So, they tend to work at your local Starbucks or, stocking shelves at Walmart or working cashier at fast food restaurants, things like that, rather than finding the next cure to cancer, which is what a lot of members of Congress would have you to believe. Yes, for some of them in college, they have to be high school graduates in order to qualify for the DACA program, or at least hold the GED certificate. So they are little educated, but they're not the valedictorians and rocket scientists that both the mainstream media and also amnesty supporters would have you believe. Again, there are a few, but in a population of about 800,000, it's probably less than 1/10 of 1%.
Tell us about the fraud problem. If they extend the DACA amnesty beyond those that signed up under Obama's program to some other number, they tell us 1.8 million or whatever number it is that going to be the number, or because of fraud it's likely to be a lot larger?
Yeah. The last amnesty that was passed by Congress was back in 1986, and when Congress passed that amnesty, they thought that about 1 million people would be eligible for it. Instead, it impacted about 3 to 4 million people actually qualified for the amnesty. So even though the estimates for DACA eligible is between 1.4 and 1.8 million, depending on which estimate you're looking at, in all likelihood, that's a floor, not a ceiling. It's going to be much, much larger than that. And why? Because number one, people are going to try to get the amnesty by using fraudulent documents. We've already seen news reports that people have actually gotten the initial DACA amnesty by submitting receipts from purchases that they made on their iPhones and things like that, just to prove legal presence. The government set a very, very low bar in terms of what kind of documents you needed in order to prove that you qualified for the DACA amnesty. So that's number one. Number two, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to challenge, if they get denied by the administration, they're going to challenge that in court of law. And in all likelihood, the judge is going to say, okay, we're going to protect that person. That person cannot be deported while their case is being reviewed. Review may go on for years and years and years. And in the end, in all likelihood, they're going to just allow that person to stay. So I think once you factor in the fraud, plus the court challenges, that 1.4 million number, which is on the low side, is probably going to be maybe, at least 2, maybe even approaching 3 million people at the end of the day. That's one of the reasons why, Numbers USA has never advocated for amnesty. In fact, we've opposed every single amnesty that's ever been issued. But we did support the Goodlatte bill, which does contain an amnesty. But the reason why was because it had so many other great qualities to it that we felt that it offset the amnesty. But another reason is because it limited the amnesty to only people who currently have the DACA amnesty. So that's about 690,000 people. Those are folks that have already gotten their work permits. They're already here, they're already working, they already have deferred action. We know exactly who those people are. So they can be easily identified, and there's no way that you can have fraud when you just say it's limited to these people and that's it.
Illegal immigration gets much more of the attention. Tell us what's going on in legal immigration, the green cards, the asylees, the refugees, and there's a whole myriad of other categories, plus temporary foreign workers for which there is no means of verifying that they leave. So how many people are coming into the country every year just legally in all those categories?
Yeah, through the legal immigration system, permanent legal immigration system, that's green cards. Folks that are getting green cards, the country issues somewhere between 1.1 million per year. It's averaged about 1 million per year since 1990, which is well above the historical average. The historical average, if you go back, is more like about 300,000 to 400,000. In fact, between the end of World War II and 1990, legal immigration averaged right around 400,000. So it's well above what the average is, and the reason why I like to identify that time of World War II until 1990 is really that's the period of time that the middle class was created here in the United States, and we had prosperity and people upward mobility, and you didn't have such disparity between the top and the bottom. You had that strong, successful middle class. And why? Because part of the reason why we had low immigration. So there wasn't this competitive workforce that we imported in every single year. So through the legal immigration system, permanent legal immigration system, we bring in about 1 million people per year. We then issue about 1.5 million guest work permits every single year to guest workers. That's the H-1B program, the H-2A, which is the agricultural guest work, the H-2B guest work program, which is for seasonal and temporary workers. Those are typically people that are working in landscaping or hospitality, vacation resorts, things like that. Then we also have the L visa, which is intra-company transfer. So if you think of all the international companies, pretty much everybody's an international company now in the global economy. So, Apple, for example, is an international company. So Apple can use the L1 visa to bring in foreign workers from, an Apple location in Japan or the Philippines, for example. So all of the guest worker programs, again, about another 1.5 million. That's in addition to the 1 million that we are bring in. And then you have foreign students that are studying at U.S. universities and colleges and things like that, and they always have a tendency to overstay visas. They have not a super high visa over rate, but they're the most likely to overstay the visas. So when their visas expire, they don't leave the country. And right now, there's really no mechanism to track visa overstayers. So you've got, there's more than 40 million foreign visitors in the country every single year. So that's a lot of people to keep track of.
Numbers USA has great information. The website is numbersusa.com, but it's also a platform for taking action. Tell us briefly about what Numbers USA does and how people can get involved with your organization.
Right, yeah. We're a grassroots organization, and what we provide is we provide tools, we provide ways that people can get in contact with their members of Congress. And we like to say we were founded back in 1996. We like to say that we invented internet faxing, because back then there was really nobody who did it. I mean, back in 1996, the internet was still in its infancy, very, very early stages, and nobody was doing it. Now there's a lot of people, a lot of different groups that provide ways to get in contact with members of Congress. But back then, the primary way, the easiest and quickest way to send a message to Congress was through a fax. Now the offices don't even have fax machines anymore, so we've had to evolve. But what we did was we created a system, and we created what's called an action board, where people can go, and there's Post-it notes that give you different actions that you can take. You click on one, and we have pre-written messages that you can send directly to your 3 members of Congress or to your U.S. representative or just to your 2 U.S. senators, depending on what the subject, the tone of the message is. So, now we deliver we don't rely on faxing anymore. As I said, we rely on lots of other tools, injecting the messages, their web forms and through email, things like that. But that's our main mission, is to try to provide a way that American voters and citizens can try to communicate with their members of Congress. So if you're not already involved with Numbers USA, go to our website, numbersusa.com. Up on the top left, we have a green Join Us button. You click on that, and you end up sending your first message to Congress, and then you get on our email list and start receiving all of our action.
Numbers USA has a great video about what's going to happen to the population if current immigration continues, and I encourage you, if you look for it, it's off the charts. And if current trends continue, the population is going to go from a little over 300 by 2100 to 600 million people in the country. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and that's actually how we were founded. Roy Beck, our founder and president, was giving a presentation. He was actually giving a presentation to one of his son's high school classes, where he demonstrated the charts and how immigration impacted population growth, according to U.S. Census Bureau, and it's been confirmed by independent research groups as well. Pew Hispanic Center has come up with the same figure as well. But about 88% of all population growth in the United States is driven by either new immigration or descendants of new immigrants. So that's where all of our population growth is coming from, and that's what happens when you bring in 1 million people per year plus 1.5 million guest workers every single year. So Roy created the demonstration where he showed the trajectory of the country based on current immigration policy and what would happen if you back to what the laws were in 1990 prior to passing the Immigration Act of 1990. And it shows a completely different future. So as Greg said, we look at the population projections. Right now we have about 325 million. We're on pace right now in 2060 to hit about 430 million if we continue to bring in the same number of folks that we're going to bring in. And again, you can see that off the charts video. It's on our website, numbersusa.com. It's on the right-hand side, about halfway down. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see the video. You'll see a picture of Roy holding some gumballs, I believe.
I want to thank you so much for giving your time. I know you're on the East Coast, so it's now 7:30 our time. It's 10:30 your time, so we really appreciate your time. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, like I said earlier, if you want to get involved, come to our website. Even if you don't come to our website, if you're interested in the project and you're concerned about what Congress may or may not do over the next couple of weeks when it comes to immigration policy, the most important thing I think you can do at this point is, reach out to your members of Congress and tell them how you feel. Make sure that your voice is being heard. And then, of course, vote in November. That's the most powerful thing that you can do is vote.
You also grade politicians on your website, so where their immigration grade is, and we are in this 31st Congressional District, and our representative and our 2 senators have worked hard for their grades of F-.
Yeah, it's a good part of the California delegation. Unfortunately has earned F-, but there's also a few Republicans in California that have worked really, really hard for their F grades as well. But we grade every single action that impacts immigration numbers.
Someone has a question here. He asked about the issue of anchor babies. Is there any prospect of doing something with that? Is a legal challenge at some point, or whether it is required by the 14th Amendment? Thoughts on anchor babies?
Yeah, so this is actually one of our top 5 issues. The 5 issues that Numbers USA is most concerned about is number 1, chain migration, number 2, visa lottery, number 3, birthright citizenship, number 4, requiring E-Verify, and then number 4, number 5, beefing up interior enforcement. state of California has made that a little difficult for us to do with SB 54. But the birthright citizenship is interesting. It's lost a little bit of focus because of lost a little bit of attention because of all the DACA stuff that's been going on in the last 9 to 12 months. But we firmly believe that the 14th Amendment does not require birthright citizenship. Look at the plain language of that amendment. What it says is that anybody born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof shall be a U.S. citizen. So we believe that somebody whose parents are in the country illegally are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. They're subject to the jurisdiction of countries. Congressman Steve King from Iowa, he introduces what's called the Birthright Citizenship Act every single Congress. He manages to grab the number HR 140. It's been that way for the last half dozen Congresses at least. David Vitter, who used to be a senator from Louisiana, he retired to run for governor but lost in the governor's race. He used to introduce the Senate version. We haven't been able to find somebody in the Senate to offer it yet. But this is... It'll receive a court challenge if Congress were to ever pass this law and a president were to sign it. It would, in all likelihood, but we're open to that fight. We'd like to see that fight. You know, the Immigration and Nationality Act actually defines who is subject to the jurisdiction of. And you know, we already exclude citizenship for babies born in the United States to parents whose parents are diplomats. So if British diplomats, for example, have a child in the U.S., that child does not get U.S. citizenship. So it's already been established. And again, Congressman King's bill would simply, it simply says anybody who is not a legal permanent resident or a U.S. citizen is not subject to the jurisdiction of the country, and therefore their child does not receive automatic birthright citizenship.
I'm just going to take one more here. The amnesty proponents.
Sure.
The amnesty proponents want to tell us that the American people, they favor amnesty, they favor DACA amnesty, they favor large immigration. But is that really a fair reading and a correct reading of what the American people think on immigration?
So American people are open. I mean, we've seen it with our own polling. American people are open to giving an amnesty, especially to Dreamers, which is a larger population than just the DACA population. So there is compassion from the American people on that, and we've confirmed it with our polling that there is pretty strong support to do something for them. But what we've also seen through our polling is when given the option of just an amnesty for the Dreamers, we're combining the amnesty with border security, interior enforcement, reducing illegal immigration. The vast majority of them, 60% of them, more than 60% of them, tend to support the bigger package. They want trade-offs. Say, okay, we'll give the amnesty what we want. Stronger border security, we want stronger interior enforcement, and we want to reduce legal immigration. Again, they don't. Just because they support amnesty doesn't necessarily mean they support an amnesty with no trade-offs. They want the trade-offs. And that's something that's often missing from the national discussion. That there's very little discussion about those trade-offs. And that's what we're trying to do is say, hey, no, okay, you're right. People are willing to consider this, but if you're going to do it, you have to reduce legal immigration, you have to mandate to verify, have to secure the border, have to beef up interior enforcement, you have to close the asylum policy. You know, you mentioned asylum and refugees. Didn't talk about it much, but there's this huge loophole that's allowing caravans from Mexico to come in and folks to just plain credible fear and take advantage of our asylum laws and get to stay in the United States. They've got to close up those loopholes too. That's another thing that's included in the bill that we've supported.
Once again, we've taken far too much of your time here. We very much appreciate your time tonight and everything that you and your organization are doing. That's numbersusa.com. If you're not already on their email list, I recommend that you do that and get on their platform. You can send faxes, emails to your representatives, and I'm sure we're going to be following what's going to be happening with Republicans in Congress. You know, I think it was Forrest Gump. We're talking about the Republicans as stupid is, as stupid does.
Yep, pretty much.
Seems that way in
they're
immigration.
not Democrats. They're just fighting with themselves right now. So, interesting times.
Someone is pointing, and I'm not sure why they're pointing. Agnes Gibney wants to say a few words to you. She is an angel mom. Her son was murdered by a previously deported illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you. I wanted to find out what can I do to help Numbers USA. I am not intimidated by anyone. I testified before Congress on border security April 27th of last year. I am willing to do the work, to speak. I'm a legal immigrant and I want to save this country. What can I do to help? Thank you.
Well, first, sorry for your loss, but I think the biggest thing is if you're willing, I mean, definitely get out there and share your story. That's what groups like the Remembrance Project have done, and the Angel Moms have done. And President Trump definitely has a soft spot. That's something that really impacted him. And I think I'll tell you the truth, I think it's something that he needs to be reminded of, because I think he's gotten caught up in this whole DACA debate and he's forgotten a little bit some of the impact that the Angel Moms had on him on the campaign trail. As you know, he stood side by side with the Angel Moms a couple of times. So, I think again, the best thing to do is continue to stay out there and tell your story if you're willing, and make sure people are aware of the consequences of illegal immigration in the United States.
Okay, there's no further questions. We are going to thank you very, very much for your time and your efforts. And have a good rest of your evening. Thanks.
Thank you.